for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does, and great to have you with us on this Thursday edition of the show. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Busy show. We'll be joined by Kavitha Davidson a little later on, sports journalist, columnist, podcast host. I want to talk to her about this Title IX news that we got yesterday and get her reaction to that. David Aardsma will swing by, our friend, former MLB reliever, chat with him about pitchers and catchers reporting. Alex Bregman's got a deal as well. Boy, and it is a big one for the Red Sox. Guy went from not having a team to play for to $40 million a year for the next 3 years. That's pretty wild. But we start things out in the NBA, and as they get ready to head to the All-Star break, the NBA is getting good, Sam, right before and now we got to sit and wait around for a week before we see any NBA games again, because these guys apparently need all the time off in the world, because the 2 to 3 days off in between games apparently isn't enough. They need more days off. There were some bangers. Well,
and they only play 3/4 of the games in the season anyway, at least if you're a superstar.
Yeah, really. If you're Joel Embiid, it's even less than that. Knicks and Hawks played a banger last night at the Garden. Both of them almost went to 150. Knicks able to hang on after blowing a 6-point lead with 10 seconds left. Reggie Miller was somewhere laughing. But the Knicks able to figure it out and get the win. And Karl Anthony Towns, back-to-back 40-point games. He is really playing at a high level. Brunson went for, I think, 34 as the Knicks bounce back and get a nice win. A couple nice wins in a row for them after the loss to the Celtics last weekend. And then I'll tell you, I sat around, Sam, and I stayed up. Well, for me, it's staying up because these days I've been going to bed early. I watched the end of that Warriors-Mavericks game. That was a fun basketball game. And, man, hats off to the Mavericks and what's left of them. I should say what's left of the Mavericks, because, I mean, they're playing with Kyrie Irving and a whole bunch of nothing. You know, Klay Thompson is a shell of himself. And they went out there last night and figured out how to beat a game Warriors team that's slowly starting to put it together with Jimmy Butler being added to the mix. Man, hats off. Kyrie, I think, had 42 last night in the win for the Mavericks. One they desperately needed. We don't just report on the Mavericks when their fans are being thrown out of games by security.
Well, in that game yesterday, the Fire Nico chants were back, and Mark Cuban was in the news this time because he stood up and started yelling at the fans that were chanting. But that's for a second, in a second from now. Because my big takeaway from the Knicks-Hawks game last night, obviously with nothing else, literally nothing else going on in the sports world, I am forced almost into watching basketball. And my biggest takeaway was this, Jason Page. It's that the NBA's got a serious problem. Because here's the deal. If you're the Knicks and you're getting, as Jason alluded to, a second straight incredible performance from your cornerstone center, matched with a standout 34-point performance from your cornerstone guard, and you're taking overtime to beat the Atlanta Hawks by like 4 points, the Knicks are going to run into the same problem that they do every year. They'll run into the Boston Celtics in the postseason, and that will be the end for New York. Quite literally, Jason Page, my takeaway from last night in the NBA was, yep, all right, there are 3 teams that can win the NBA championship, maybe 4 if you sprinkle the Nuggets in there. But it's either going to the Cavs, the Celtics, or the Thunder, because those 3 right now are just so clearly and obviously better in multiple dimensions than the next closest team in either of their conferences.
But it's funny. It feels like Vegas, in some ways, isn't as sold on the Cavaliers as you are when you put them in that list. I want to talk about that a little bit more coming up in just a moment after a word from our friends over at Edge Boost. I am all about trying to take sports betting to the next level for my listeners and for our viewers, and that's exactly why I'm pumped to tell you about Edge Boost, the financial platform paying you cash back to wager. Edge Boost is an online bank account paying you for every deposit. With the Edge Boost Visa debit card, you're getting up to 0.5% cash back on all your sportsbook, daily fantasy site, and casino transactions. Free money back in your pocket just for doing what you're doing already. It's a no-brainer. Plus, your Edge Boost debit card starts with an unprecedented $250,000 daily limit, and it'll never be declined for gambling activity. They've got built-in tools to help you stay responsible and absolutely no hidden fees or minimum required balances. Stop leaving money on the table. Visit edgeboost.bet to learn more and sign up today. And when you do, use my promo code WRAP, W-R-A-P. That's WRAP, W-R-A-P, and get a free upgrade for your account with Edge Boost. The odds makers say Cleveland plus 850, basically 8.5 to 1. The Celtics, meanwhile, are plus 195 and the Thunder are 230. So there's a significant drop-off from the Celtics and Thunder to the Cavaliers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was being even a little too liberal for the books. The books are telling you, all right, it's either the Celtics or the Thunder, and if you want to give us money on literally any other team, we'll take it, and in about 4 months, you're going to get kicked in the nuts real hard. Jason, the numbers are wild, but I again cannot say that I sit here and disagree with them after seeing what I saw last night in the National Basketball Association. It's a really toxic trait of the league right now, and they're gonna have to get it under control and do so very fast, because clearly the whole apron system isn't working if in year 2 of it, or maybe even year 1 of this new apron system, we've still found ourselves in this same spot where it's going to be one of the 1 seeds winning the NBA championship.
You can get the Celtics and Thunder to meet in the NBA Finals right now at plus 260. Would you take it?
No, because I'm not going to bet something at plus 260 that I have to wait 3.5 months to get paid out.
Yeah, it is a while, isn't it? Cavaliers and Thunder? Cavaliers and Thunder at 7.5 to 1, plus 750.
I'd rather bet the Cavs to win the finals at that point and hedge out once I get there.
Well, the only hope right now for anything other than the teams you're talking about is they get plucked. They get plucked out early. I mean, and look, that could happen. I mean, look, we've seen the Celtics kind of coast through the season at times. I'm convinced that they are just doing that they're, sort of taking the foot off the gas pedal a little bit and pacing themselves. Remember, they played all those games last year, and we heard Mike Malone talk about this as the head coach of the Nuggets, just how taxing it is on a team when you go deep into the postseason, and instead of playing 82 games, now you're playing 100 games. It does wear on you a bit. I think some of these guys are just sort of self-regulating right now.
It's the same thing we saw the Celtics do last year. After having a long season the season previous and going to the NBA Finals, they lollygagged their way through the regular season, and we saw what they did last postseason. It's going to be more of the same come the playoffs this year.
All right, we're going to come back. Some football to get to. Travis Kelce talks retirement. Dak Prescott talks Super Bowls. Are either of them likely? Sports Wrap continues on this Thursday, and we go from the NBA to the NFL because there is always NFL news. It's like there's always room for Jell-O. There's always room for the NFL. Sammy Arnell, you and I have not had a chance to discuss what is transpiring post-Super Bowl with the Chiefs and Travis Kelce. He and his brother Jason host a podcast. On Wednesday's episode, the two of them discussing the idea of Travis Kelce potentially retiring. Here's what that sounded like.
It's going to sting. I know everybody wants to know whether or not I'm playing next year, and right now I'm just kicking everything down the road. I'm kicking every can I can down the road, and I'm not making any crazy decisions, but right now the biggest thing is just being there for my teammates and being there for my coaches, understanding, that there's a lot that goes into this thing. I've been fortunate over the past 5-6 years. I've played more football than anybody. Yeah. And it's because the people that are in that building and the fact that we keep going to these AFC championships and these Super Bowls. And that means I'm playing an extra 3 games more than everybody else in the entire league. And that's a lot of wear and tear on your body. And it's a lot of time spent in the building, focusing on your craft, focusing on the task at hand, every challenge that you set up for yourself. And it's that process can be grueling. It can weigh on you.
That sounds, I got to be honest, that sounds like a very well thought out, crafted answer in terms of where his head is at right now. I think right now he might be leaning towards retirement, but in a month or two, when this sort of settles down and he's had a chance to rest his body a bit, I think he's coming back. But what do I know?
Yeah, it feels to me like the writing's on the wall there for him to retire. It just has kind of felt like the whole week leading up to the Super Bowl, he was kind of starting to lay it out, kind of whether win or lose, like is kind of going to be a very serious consideration for retirement, and it feels like it's only gotten more serious since the game ended. You're right. We've got plenty of months until that all starts to kick up again. But if you're Travis Kelce, you've got to think like he's at a point in his career, as weird as it is, where over the last 2 years, he's built a life away from football in the public eye, which to me has kind of been always something very important to him, is remaining in that public eye. So I think that now he's at a juncture where he can comfortably do that and, save a couple of years of his life on the back end. It feels to me like he's kind of laying the groundwork for himself to gracefully bow out this offseason.
Well, my big thing then, if that's what you're going to do, don't wait 2 or 3 months. If your head is there, and look, I get it. One of the all-time great tight ends, he has the right to. He has the right to sort of make this decision in his own timetable. At the same time, you don't want to set as much as he just talked team and the guys and that locker room, you can't set that organization up to be in a position where, the draft and free agency, and they're going to need somebody else in the pass catching game. Not that he was huge in the pass catching game throughout much of the regular season. But they're going to need time to sort of put that together. He's got to make a decision sooner rather than later.
Yeah, you're exactly right? Like Noah Gray is not going to be a serviceable everyday starting tight end in the National Football League. He's a good backup, but that's what he is. He's a good backup. If you put him into that starting role, you can't even see him being in the top 2/3 of the league in terms of tight ends. And quite frankly, that's a league where the tight end position is very weak right now. And if you lose Travis Kelce, it's kind of like George Kittle's the only old head remaining, and then you got Trey McBride and Sam Laporta as the new young faces of the position. It would be a very interesting development for the position of tight end on the whole should Travis Kelce retire, Jason.
Let's move to Aaron Rodgers, because there is some news on that front, and I want to get to it in just a moment after a word from our friends over at Credit Associates. Did you see the big number that Jamal Murray put up last night for the Nuggets? Starting to play some pretty good basketball, is that Jamal Murray, and the Nuggets are certainly going to be a force in the West. Is credit card debt a force in your life right now? Is it keeping you from your financial freedom? Well, it's time to break through with our friends from Credit Associates, who can help you slam down your debt for up to half of what you owe. That's the kind of move you want to see in your financial game. Don't wait another quarter. Call 1-800-747-5362 today. See how much you can save. Are you $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Then call our friends at Credit Associates. When it's time to make a play, they got your back. To see if you qualify for debt relief, call 1-800-747-5362 or just visit creditassociates.com or just scan. That's what the Gen Zers like to say, that QR code below. The Jets have said goodbye to Aaron Rodgers. It is official. The team notifying Rodgers that they would not be bringing him back for the 2025 season. Now, does that mean they trade him? Does that mean they just release him? I don't know if that's in any of the reports as of the time that we're putting together this show, Sam. But you're talking salary cap hit that they're going to have to deal with, and I mean, can you get something for him, or are they just going to have to let him go?
No, they're going to have to release him. It has been reported that he is going to be released. And we spoke about this the other day on the show, Jason. It is not an insignificant cap number in terms of the dead money that they're now going to have to take on when you're looking at the New York Jets. And this is what you get, quite frankly, when you mortgage your future and the current state of your franchise on a 40-year-old quarterback and give him a deal that pays him through age 42. The total dead cap figure is just around 49 million. Yeah, $49 million in dead cap is what the Jets will now accrue, is what I'm seeing here per initial reports. Listen, it's not good. The Jets are going to have to mail in this season.
Headline, it's not good.
Seriously, this is a Jameis season leading you to 4 wins, hopefully taking you to a Quinn Ewers or someone else in the draft next year.
What I said yesterday.
And that's going to have to be the future of your franchise. It's the only hope you have.
It's what I said yesterday on the show. I said, if you're a Jet fan, be ready to eat you-know-what this year, with the hope that, you're going to be able to get one of those top quarterbacks. But if you're going to suck, make sure you really suck, because the Jets have had a propensity for being really bad, but not being bad enough to get the top pick in the draft and having to settle for, Sam Darnold or whoever blondie boy that likes to, date his mom's friends, that whole thing.
Zach
Wilson. Thank you. The name was escaping me. He's not playing much in the league, so I don't think we need to worry about him. But I mean, to me, if you are if you're a Jets fan, just hope that they could even tank correctly, because this team doesn't do anything right. So I don't know why we should expect anything to change.
They'll be 9-8 next year. It's going to be awesome.
9-8 with what? Are you playing quarterback?
I don't know, but they got to fail upwards.
No, they'll go like 5-12. It'd be like the 6th pick in the draft. We're coming back with David Aardsma. Why don't we take it to segment 3 on this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap? Let's talk some baseball. The best thing about the football season ending means that baseball season's beginning. Yes! Let's go!
Pitchers and catchers, they lace them up. They're out there getting cold, freezing their butt off.
and right now in Arizona, it is cold, because I know your weather is very similar to mine here in Vegas, and it's so cold. It was drizzling and 42 this morning. I'm like, why did I move to Vegas? David Aardsma, former MLB reliever, our closer on the show, hangs out with us today to talk some baseball. So little did I know when we booked you yesterday that Alex Bregman would sign a deal with the Red Sox. Are you surprised at just how big it was for 3 years and $120 million, considering nobody was signing this guy and he was just kind of hanging out there in the offseason?
Well, it shows you one of two things. It shows that obviously they had a number, Boris and Bregman had a number out there that was really high and that they thought he was worth. And they've been shopping it. They stood still. They stood pat on that number until the rest of the market basically caved. And he got, you're looking at $40 million a year for a guy, in his 30s already. And great deal for him. I mean, great money for Alex Bregman. I don't know if he's going to be able to compete at that type of level over those 3 years. But again, it's a short-term contract. It's a great deal for him. I think it probably overpaid. But when you're looking at a team like the Red Sox that probably needed to overpay for somebody since they waited that long and make an impact, I'll tell you what, they sure did it. People are going to be in the stands always at Red Sox games, but now they'll have a sense of we can actually win versus just coming to the ball games. I
actually think that was part of it, though, because last year there were times where the Red Sox really weren't good, and there weren't the fans. They might have bought tickets, maybe they weren't going. And that is something that organization is always a bit touchy about, is when there's empty seats, they react. And I feel like they've really done that in this offseason.
I think they did a great job of it too. They found the right type of players. This isn't just a spending spree that some teams have done in the past, that even Red Sox have kind of done in the past. This is finding the right players that match their lineup, match their ballpark, and it's just going to be, can the fan base, can anybody get over Astros players, and especially a guy like Bregman, who was kind of in the middle of a lot of that stuff, and maybe not as bad as Altuve, but he sure took a whole lot of booing as he goes around the league. It's just a matter of how quickly can they get over it. But if he goes opening day or that first series and hits a big home run, which he will, those fans are going to forget about the Astro days really quickly, unless he has a bad streak. If he has a bad month or something, they'll remember that.
Go ahead, Sam.
David, with the roundedness now, I guess we'll say, of that Red Sox team, with the addition of Bregman and obviously the offseason additions they've made to bolster that rotation, what is the ceiling for you to this Red Sox team? In an AL East, could they win it, especially in a division where Juan Soto just left?
Juan Soto leaving obviously hurts the Yankees, but I think the Yankees have done a great job of doing the old Billy Bean Moneyball in the aggregate, finding enough players to fill in. And I think the Yankees are actually a more complete lineup and complete roster than they were last year, without a doubt. So I don't think they have enough to beat the Yankees, but if they do, it's going to be built upon a team of ragtag guys thrown together and kind of building an identity together. This, like, we're the underdogs, we're fighting exactly what they did back in the early 2000s when they finally broke over that hump and really kind of gave it to the Yankees. If they find that identity and they get on a run, I've got no doubt they can maybe catch the Yankees, but I still don't want to face the Yankees in a 3-game, 5-game, 7-game series against anybody. I love the moves they made in the roster. They still don't have just guys in the middle of the lineup that are just bangers where you're just like, dude, a Manny and a Poppy type of guy, but they have a complete lineup and they have a great rotation. Bringing in Buehler is a huge deal. That trade for Crochet is obviously a monster deal. I have a whole lot of concerns about his arm. I don't know how much he's going to be throwing this year, but that's a whole nother conversation. But they've done a great job in the bullpen. I mean, all around, they've built a great team. I think they've caught the Orioles because the Orioles have definitely stepped back, and now we're hoping on a whole bunch of young players to improve their game. And I think they've done a great job to building a Red Sox team.
Go ahead, Sam. You got a follow-up?
Well, we're talking about the AL East, David, and I wanted to get a player's opinion on this because obviously the story whenever one of these big name free agents signs now is, yes, oh my gosh, the Blue Jays missed out on yet another one. And this is a team that has some young talent on it that you'd think would draw people. What is pushing, David, all these players away from Toronto?
I think there's a big thing. Obviously, Santander signing there is a big deal. That's an awesome. 41 home runs or whatever it was, 42. Yeah. It's incredible. Him going to right field. That's the best thing they could have done. I don't know if they're willing to go to the money with him. I don't know if with him they're willing to go to that money. $40 million a year. Bregman in the 30s. Can't imagine any other team really going to that number besides the Astros, who are probably pretty close. But I think a lot of it has to do with Vladdy not being signed, and okay, your best player is not signed. Like, he's not. We don't know if he's ever coming back. And in this market, unless it's $700 million, or it's probably going to be $400 million to $500. But unless they're in that number, he's not coming back to Toronto. So why, if I'm a big free agent and I'm looking for my future, why am I going to sign somewhere where their best player, who I want to play next to, is not guaranteed?
Nick Pivetta to the Padres. They had been quiet basically throughout this entire offseason, and then they go get Pivetta. Your thoughts?
A great job. Again, they've only lost a little. They've lost in the lineup. They did make a great move with bringing in Jason Hayward. That's awesome as far as they're going to probably do a little platoon there. And so that's really good for him. But then we're looking at that rotation. A great rotation to begin with. Got better. I love the signing there. Again, it's a good deal for the Padres, good deal for him. And again, when you add him into as being a fourth, that's a great thing. The only thing concerned there is now what happens to Dylan Cease. Does that give them the strength and power to move on from Dylan Cease?
By the way, back to the Red Sox for just 1 second before we wrap this segment. Is Lucas Giolito still there?
Is Giolito still there?
Yes, he's like the sixth guy in their rotation
because he didn't pitch last year, and I was wondering if he is still in the mix to potentially be part of that rotation coming off of, I believe, Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, it's going to get interesting when you're looking at Crawford is kind of like that guy. If Cutter Crawford ends up making the team, that gets really interesting where they're going to do there if he's healthy or not. But because Bayo, Crochet, Hawk, and then Buehler, again, they do have some injury guys. Like Buehler's not fully 100%. Like, yes, he's the man. You got Giolito, so there's injury stuff there. So they're in a good spot.
And you know this as well as anybody. You can never have enough starting pitching. Somebody's going to go down. Somebody's going to get hurt. It may even happen in spring training, unfortunately. I want to ask you. Yes, absolutely. I want to ask you about spring training and sort of what pitchers and catchers are going through right now. Also, Shohei Ohtani, news on him when it comes to pitching. We'll continue the conversation with David Aardsma, the former big league reliever, hanging out with us on Sports Wrap. Flying through this Thursday edition of the show, continuing the baseball conversation with our friend David Aardsma, former big league reliever. Shohei Ohtani news. So they're saying that he's not going to pitch in the Cactus League. But he's anxious to get out there, but he said he's still feeling sort of some, I don't know if the word was discomfort, not anything that would make you have like red sirens or red flashing lights, but they're talking about a May start for him, and they're talking 6-man rotation in Los Angeles with the Dodgers. What are your thoughts?
So what he's feeling right now, again, I think you hit it perfectly. It's not a red flag. It's nothing like that. Is when you're sitting there at the very beginning of your rehab process, beginning of your game rehab process, right? So that's what he went through this winter, is trying to figure out and games type of stuff. It just doesn't feel right. So what happens is your brain is trying to reconnect with your fingers after having a Tommy John surgery. So there's a disconnect in the middle, and your brain is trying to connect, like reorganize. Where's my hand and what does it feel like? Because there's right in the middle, you took one of your chains out of your kinetic chain. And so your brain is trying to reorganize, where's my fingers and what feels right. What happens is, as you start throwing, you start changing maybe your delivery a little bit by millimeters and minuscule tiny little milliseconds in your timing. Things just don't feel right and everything feels weird. And then you associate that with what happened to your elbow and the Tommy John and hurting your elbow, or feeling some shoulder discomfort with a lot of guys too at that time. So there's a lot of weird connections, and the brain is trying to figure out where everything is, and your hand doesn't feel right. That's totally normal. That's a process, but that's what guys go through that first year after Tommy John, when they're pitching and their numbers just aren't quite right. And you're going, well, is he okay? Is he fully healthy? Is he coming back from Tommy John? And that's why that second year is so important after Tommy John, where the guys hit. Verlander, it took just a little bit, and then he figured it out, and then he became, I think he won the Cy Young again after that. But it takes a little bit to feel, and you need to be in games. And that's the thing about it. You need to be in games to be doing that. And just throwing innings, throwing stuff, and get over that. But it always takes a while. This will be as that first year of it. I have zero concern about it. My bigger concern is that it's double Tommy John, and that he won't be a pitcher for long.
Is there a risk to babying him too much?
One, for the Dodgers, no, they've got so many pitchers, it doesn't matter. But so from a roster standpoint, no. There are points to that you can be very careful about, and too careful about babying guys. And I was with the Yankees when I was rehabbing my Tommy John, and they basically said, hey, David, like, there's times that you just got to throw and you got to get over it. And I ended up getting over it. But setbacks happen. And weird things happen, and I had a little setback too. And there's times where you just got to step back and go, hey, what's more important? That he's healthy for the next 3-4 years? Yes. So let's just take our time with it. And the roster doesn't matter. They were happy with paying him $700 million, him just being a hitter, let alone a Cy Young winning style pitcher. So I think they're going to be just fine, and I think he'll be fine.
Sam has a question regarding pitchers and catchers reporting to spring training. We'll get to that in just a moment after a word from our friends at Credit Associates. Are you $10,000 or more in credit card debt, in over your head trying to make monthly payments? Well, there's a powerful debt relief program the credit card companies don't want you to know about. Overcome the debt trap of multiple credit cards, high payments, and high interest rates that keep you in debt for decades with one affordable low monthly payment. Credit Associates Debt Relief Program can help you resolve your debt in as little as 24 to 36 months. And that'll save you thousands of dollars and decades in debt. What are you waiting for? Find out how much you could save right now. Call 1-800-747-5362. That's 1-800-747-5362. Our friends with Credit Associates, or just scan that QR code. Go ahead, Sam.
I'll get to the spring training question in just a minute, David, but you were talking about the kinetic balance and trying to refine that as a pitcher. I'm curious, especially after a second Tommy John, when does the concern for thoracic outlet syndrome come into play? Because I know that that's something that gets real finicky when you get to that second Tommy John, and that is a career ender at this point, the way we thought Tommy John was 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, it's scary. I played with guys with the Giants back in the day, Noah Lowry, where they thought it was Tommy John. It was actually thoracic outlet. And he ended up having like 2 Tommy John surgeries, and his elbow was totally fine, and ended his career, and horrible with that. And so to me, that's a worst case scenario. That's something you could go down the line, but you got to get him on that mound throwing and just get going. And if it ends up going to that place, you can always stop on the throwing side and get to just let him be the hitter. And again, that's a nerve issue. That's much more of a nerve issue with the bone and all that. So you tend to let's see where your arm is first.
Got it. Obviously, pitchers and catchers reporting this week. I wanted to ask our resident baseball professional on the program, what was your favorite part of spring training? Your favorite specific day, David Aardsma? I know there's picture day. I know there's glove day. I know there's Evo Shield day. Which of all of them was your favorite to partake in?
Oh, the Evo Shield day for sure. No, the Evo Shield guys would walk in and laugh at me. Because I'd be like, dude, let's get some elbow guards, get some shit. And they're just like, dude, you've had like 3 at-bats in your career. We're good. We're not going to waste the money on you. Oakley day is a pretty good one when the Oakley Oakley truck pulls up. That's a pretty good one. I'll say this. Like, I wasn't even an Oakley guy, and they pulled up. I'm like, yes. Like,
I am very
Oakleys
much
that
an
I never
Oakley
wear.
guy.
I'm going to wear it. And then picture day. Picture day, though, the problem is it's too early in the morning. It needs to be in the afternoon when we're actually awake. And they wake you up. You got to be there at 6:30, and you're there, and like you're kind of tired, and then you kind of get waken up. If you have a good fun team, that's a lot of fun because you can mess around with photos and do like something. Like I did a buddy shot one year. Like I did Will Omen. I'm just saying this right now. Will Omen with Chicago Cubs told me, dude, on this one, make the stupidest face you can. And I did, just like knowing they're going to take like 2 pictures. And I made the dumbest face. And they paid the guy to use that photo as my photo up on the scoreboard. So everywhere we went, and I was like this. something stupid. And that's the photo they used on the scoreboard. And that's the rookie. Yeah.
I love it.
Fell for that.
Love it. David Aardsma, former big league reliever. Get ready. It's that time of the year, my friend. We'll see more of you soon. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes, but first, something to consider on this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap, and we consider it with our friend Kavitha Davidson.
Hi, Jason.
There she is, in all her glory. Columnist, podcast host, sports journalist. She was part of the team at Real Sports. So she's an Emmy Award winner. And she hangs out with us. She's still kind enough to make time for us in her busy schedule. I always appreciate that, my friend.
Oh, stop it. Always love joining you.
All right. I appreciate it. And we haven't had you on for a while, and I felt bad. I looked last night. I was like, oh, my God, I haven't messaged her since before the end of the year. I'm like, what is wrong? I got to get your thoughts on this Title IX story. I'm actually finishing up a column for it for our friends over at MSNBC. So I'm writing about it. I want to get your take because the immediate reaction you cannot help but having when you see the Title IX story, which if people don't know, Department of Education came out yesterday. What's left of the Department of Education came out yesterday and said, hey, we're going to basically roll back guidance from the Biden administration, which said that Title IX, when it came to NIL money, it had to be dispersed evenly amongst male and female athletics on the collegiate level. Well, now the Trump White House has come out and said, no, it doesn't need to be dispersed equitably. No, there's nothing that says you get equality when it comes to NIL money. So I wanted to get your reaction because my immediate reaction was, well, weren't you crazy about Title IX just a few weeks ago when you said we're not going to allow transgender females to participate in female athletics? We're putting that executive order out, and it's driven at Title IX and equality for women. But now when it comes to getting paid if you're a female and it's college athletics and it's NIL, you're SOL. That was my reaction to it.
Just on that level of the hypocrisy, it's very clear that this administration doesn't care about women's sports. Attacking transgender athletes is about the cruelty and the culture war more than it is about the integrity of women's sports, whatever they care about. I do want to, so let's start focusing and then we can zoom out, right?
Sure.
In the immediate reaction to this particular piece of news that came out on Tuesday and Wednesday, I had the same reaction, right? I think it says a lot. It signals a disregard for the importance of investment in women's sports, but the actual impact of this announcement is very little. And here's what I mean by that. The guidance that the Biden administration set out right before he left office was not legally binding. It was exactly that. It was guidance. So this was always going to be something that had to play out in the courts. So rescinding that guidance does not change that fact. The $20.5 million that will be distributed to college sports, 80% of which will likely go to football and men's basketball, that is part of a House antitrust settlement that has Title IX implications, but Title IX was not litigated in that settlement itself. So even before the guidance was issued and then rescinded, these were things that would have had to play out in the courts. And those kinds of Title IX litigation cases tend to come from individuals and not from the federal government. So the Department of Education usually doesn't really have a role to play in those types of cases. Now, zooming out, if you talk to college coaches, they do say that this seems to set back the idea of the progress that women's sports has had. It seems to set that back 20, 25 years. Because as we know, the investment in these sports is how we get more eyeballs on them, how we get a higher level of talent participating, and how eventually we get to the level where women's March Madness is right now. So I think that that is one thing to absolutely be concerned about. Then more broadly, the Department of Education is in charge of enforcing Title IX. And as the DOE continues to be gutted, President Trump has said he wants to do away with it entirely, and then perhaps Title IX would come under the jurisdiction of the Department of Justice. To me, the scariest part of this is whether or not it signals a desire to get rid of Title IX writ large. And that obviously would be devastating for women's sports.
I see now. I had not heard that. I mean, has that something that's actually been discussed? Are there politicians out there? Are there politicos that have actually suggested they could do away with Title IX?
So that would obviously take a huge change in the law, but what we've seen in the last month is sweeping changes that do take legal changes that have had to be blocked by judges. So we really don't know, and I don't want to fuel speculation that's unfounded, but for decades, way before President Trump was in office the first time or this time around, there have been politicians who have said that Title IX has not actually been good for college sports, has not been good for women's sports, and there have been efforts to roll back their provisions. So I think that it's just something to keep an eye on for sure.
I think it is too. And what I think of as I was listening to you talk is the impact that while this doesn't have any teeth and while this will work its way through the courts, it's the message it's sending to those female athletes at NCAA institutions that they're hearing. And even if it doesn't have an immediate impact, it's that message they're hearing that it has to be demoralizing.
It's exactly that message. And it's just another way of saying what people have been saying to denigrate women's sports for decades now, which is essentially that women college athletes don't garner the same market value that male college athletes do, particularly in the revenue generating sports like football and basketball. So the thing to focus in on here is the equal distribution of these NIL payments under the Biden guidance was contingent on those NIL payments being considered to be funding assistance, funding assistance to these athletes. And that's what brings it under Title IX. Opposition to that is saying that it's payments and these should be based on, the free market and things like that. Now, the problem therein is if you talk to Title IX lawyers is that these payments, these payments are not necessarily. Title IX doesn't come under free market economics. So that's really where this is going to play out.
Kavitha Davidson, I always appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for stopping by. Let's talk again soon and not wait so long.
Thanks, Jason. I'll always.
Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. We got a jam-packed show. I don't know where we're going to fit it all in. Ken Golden will drop by from Golden Auctions. Some thoughts with him on the sports betting, or sports collectibles world, I should say, because he is key in that. Tino Patino will be here. It's the Daytona 500 this weekend, so we'll have some thoughts with him on that. Maybe Chris Myers with Fox Sports. I've been texting with him throughout the day. So Chris Myers may be a part of that show tomorrow as well. So there is a lot planned for our Friday show. If you have not done so yet, make sure to check out the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. It's available on all your favorite podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, you name it. We are on all of them. And without any further delay, it is time for some odds and ends presented by our friends at Edge Boost, always looking for a way to help you take your sports betting game to the next level. And that's why I love Edge Boost, the financial platform paying you cash back to wager. Edge Boost is an online bank account paying you for every deposit. And with the Edge Boost Visa debit card, you're getting up to 0.5% cash back on all your sportsbook, daily fantasy site, and casino transactions. Free money back in your pocket just for doing what you're doing already. This is a no-brainer. Plus, your Edge Boost debit card starts with a $250,000 daily limit, and it'll never be declined for gambling activity. They've got built-in tools to help you stay responsible, and there's absolutely no hidden fees or minimum required balances. So stop leaving money on the table. Visit edgeboost.bet to learn more and sign up today. It only takes 2 to 3 minutes to sign up. It's easy, and when you sign up, use my promo code WRAP, W-R-A-P, that's WRAP, W-R-A-P, and get a free upgrade to your account from our friends at Edge Boost. Better yet, just scan that QR code right there. It'll take you right to where you need to go. All right, Sam, odds and ends. We were talking, we had David Aardsma on the show, big part of the show today. Major League Baseball World Series winners, among many futures that I'm looking at for odds and ends. Right now, the Dodgers are at plus 240, and there is a huge gap between them and everybody else. The Yankees are next at 750, then the Braves at plus 900, the Phillies at 1100. The Mets have the 4th best odds to win the World Series. Can you imagine adding one? My eye roll exactly, Sam. I feel exactly the same way. How the Mets have the 4th best odds to win a World Series simply because they added Juan Soto. Has anybody looked at that lineup from like 5 down? I don't know how that team is a World Series contender.
They're not. The book is hanging that number because they know that there are a lot of New York Met fans out there. And quite frankly, a lot of those New York Met fans like to casually bet and casually lose money very, very frequently. So they know that if they hang some ridiculous number, I don't even know what the number is, but you just tell me that's the 4th best is
11
crazy.
to 1.
Yeah, 11 to 1. Oh my gosh, they're going to take so many bets on that, and they won't have to worry about it come, I'll say, September 15th. Yeah,
note it on the calendar. Note the date on the calendar. February 13th.
Sure
Sam
thing.
said it.
7 months from 2 days from now, 7 months from Friday, I can promise you the New York Mets will not be World Series contenders.
Wow.
Partially because the 2 other teams in their division are listed ahead of them on that very list, Jason Page.
It's true.
But I'll tell you this, right? I know there's some of you out there who might want to bet who's going to win the shiniest ring this year and yada, 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 yada. Not me. I'm going dumpster diving, and I think I got a gold mine for you.
All right.
So there are a couple of books hanging this market out there. Worst regular season record. And I've got 2 teams for you, both at large plus money, that I may be putting a wager on today on this February 13th. The first is the Colorado Rockies to have the worst record in Major League
breaking
Baseball.
my heart.
You can get that at plus 270 at some houses. Oh, with our friends over at the FanDuel Sportsbook, you can get that at plus 270. The other one, and this one really just feels like free money after we talked about 3 of the other teams in this very division earlier in this segment. The Miami Marlins to have the worst record in Major League Baseball. I'm seeing a house out there hanging it at 6 to 1. Yes, please, I will take that 7 days a week. The Miami Marlins are going to be a horrible, terrible, god-awful team this year. I am telling you that right now. Mark my words, they're going to be they're going to make the Oakland Athletics and the Chicago White Sox of last year look like World Series contenders. The Miami Marlins are going to be horrible. Give me them to have the worst record in Major League Baseball this year. That's my market of the day, Jason Page.
Wow. I like it. I like the Red Sox at plus 2,500 as a World Series
to have the
pick.
worst?
No, as a World Series pick. If I'm going, if I'm taking all my bias out of it, that with what they've done in this offseason, I like the Red Sox at 25-1 as a World Series dark horse. That's where I'll go.
So after our conversation with David Aardsma, I posited the question to him: what's the ceiling with this team? I'm with you. Like, I do. Yeah. I think that in that division, they could win that division, have a good record in the American League. It's a well-rounded baseball team, Jason. Yep. I'm with you.
Good manager.
I use a free bet on it.
They got a good manager. He's won a World Series. He knows what it takes to win. That's my dark horse. The Yankees at plus 750. I mean, oh my God. I mean, I'll bet it because I'm a Yankee fan and I'm a sucker, but that's the only reason. We're out of time. Thanks to David Aardsma and Kavitha. We'll see you all tomorrow.